Hey guys, before we dive into this week's episode, I've got a little offer for you. This year I launched my online studio, Mindful Moment, and I'd love for you to prioritise your own well-being and come and have a free trial. You'll get unlimited 24-hour access to my growing library of meditations, mindfulness techniques, breathwork and movement sessions, yoga classes, sound healing recordings, and more. Whether you got 2 minutes or a full day, and whether you want to improve your sleep, feel calmer, or let go of damaging thought patterns, there are sessions there to support you. All from the comfort of your own home on your own timetable. Go to lilysilverton.com/mindful-moment to start your free 7-day trial today.
I talk to people all the time, like, yeah, you're only like this because you're an ex-Christian. If you weren't a Christian, you wouldn't think this. And it's like, yeah, you're probably right. You're probably right. But kind of seeing the world as I did, that God had ordered my steps and he had a plan for everything. Losing that was quite a harrowing experience for me. And so I was clinging onto other vines. I needed a mission.
Welcome to Priorities, the podcast about the things in life that really matter. I'm your host, journalist and coach Lily Silverton, and each week, along with a roster of incredible guests, I'll be exploring how priorities inform and transform our lives, sharing mindset tips, strategies, and inspiration to help you prioritise your own life. We'll be covering what we think is important and unimportant, what we'd like to work on more, and the moments that changed our priorities and lives forever. I hope you enjoy. My guest today is poet, spoken word artist and musician James Massiah. Exploring ideas around sexuality, mortality and ethics, James has performed what he terms as his party poetry at the Tate Modern, the ICA, the South Bank and the Houses of Parliament. He's been commissioned to produce work for the BBC, The Guardian, Nike, London Fashion Week and the British monarchy, writing a poem for Prince Charles's 70th birthday. And he's featured in campaigns for Selfridges, Loewe and Adidas. A London polymath through and through.
Hello.
How are you doing today? How's your day been so far?
It's been good so far. I've done some shopping. I've got my new soda stream in, my new canister, so I'm excited about that.
I feel totally the same way when we get ours in, so I'm with you on that one.
I was without sparkle for a couple of days and I really felt the difference. So glad to have my bubbles back and just enjoying the sunshine.
Are you a routine kind of person? Do you do like the same thing every day?
Do you know what? I think I have a routine, but it changes. And I always couldn't tell you on what cycle it goes, but I have moments where I'm kind of partying loads. And then I have kind of periods of time when I'm kind of in a work mode. And others where I'm sort of kind of just doing houseworky stuff or exercisey stuff. And in my current phase, it's sort of on the back of some work stuff. And there's nothing in the schedule for a little while in terms of having to be anywhere. So it's kind of just like taking time out, not really seeing anyone, not really going anywhere. And like just doing kind of chores, housework, bits of writing and reading. And so more than a routine, it's like I have a to-do list. So I'll tell you that I am a to-do list person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever the weather, whatever season I'm in, I will have a to-do list. And so I guess in that sense, it isn't quite a routine, is it? But it's just a checklist, to-do list. And that kind of keeps me ordered.
Do you feel disordered if you don't have a to-do list?
You know, I take everything in my stride. I mean, I guess everyone does, just by virtue of existing. But I think that having a to-do list, when I know I've got things I need to do, I kind of just put them down as soon as I get the thought that I've got to do something, and then I write that down, and then the other things can come from that thought. Whereas if I don't particularly have anything that I need to do on that day, then I won't, and I kind of won't hold that against myself,
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, their to-do lists become like something that they berate themselves with.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like to self-flagellate at all. I think that anything, I don't know, I guess I accept myself, some people would say warts and all as an expression. I wouldn't, but, it's just, it is me, and it's just how I feel on the day, So if I feel like doing to-do lists, then I will do, and that is a lot of my days. But if for whatever reason, kind of on the back end of a long weekend of partying or whatever else, or just like, feeling like I need to kind of be off the grid for a while or out of a loop, then I just won't, and I won't hold that against myself.
Do you feel like you've always been really accepting of yourself?
Kind
of a big question.
Is that again?
It's kind of a big question. Sorry.
Yes, it is.
To hit you up with so early.
No, I don't know. I think that my kind of recent, I grew up as a Christian, and that comes with, a very obvious yardstick, that being, I don't know, either the Ten Commandments or the Golden Rule or the life of Christ himself. And then you put the kind of pastors and family members and whatever else into that too. But then I guess even separate from being a Christian, there is society and peer groups and social groups that impose some kind of sense of who you're supposed to be. And I think I discovered kind of nihilism and determinism and egoism in my mid-20s. And I think that from that point onwards, kind of like with that kind of philosophical education, let's say, I became a lot more accepting of myself, understanding that yes, there are things that people would rather I did or didn't do, and that I might get further in society or in my relationships with people if I adhere to these given, rules, so to speak, but that they are not absolute, and they are created. And it's up to me to decide what I opt in and out of. And so, yeah, I haven't always been that accepting of myself. Definitely kind of in my church days and a bit later on when I was kind of getting into like, I don't know, politics, social justice type stuff. Then yeah, I think I was quite hard on myself. But where I'm at now, I'm very easy on myself, and life's much more fun for it.
That's good. And also life's pretty hard. So it's always nice when you hear people who are easy on themselves.
Life is so hard.
Exactly.
Life is hard. It doesn't make it any harder, So yeah,
totally.
Agreed.
So one of your first priorities that you gave me was philosophy.
Yes.
Which you came to in your mid-20s, did you say? Early to mid-20s?
Yes.
Chat to me a little bit about that. Never had that as a priority on the podcast. So I'm really
interesting. I don't know. I guess maybe it's something that people take for granted. Like, people are constantly throwing around cliches and truisms and stuff. That in my own reading and research have come across all over again in the works of given philosophers. But for me, in that kind of period of time, I suppose, grew up as a Christian, got involved in Islam for a bit, and sort of like considered like faith and religion. And then once I became an atheist, there was this vacuum, and I tried to fill that vacuum with, I guess, identity politics at one point, and then beyond that, a sort of more broader goal to like, I don't know if I say take down the man, but like to kind of thwart the power structures as I saw it. And then that kind of wasn't fulfilling either. And in the kind of wake of losing that mission, I had to find something to guide me, I suppose. And I talk to people all the time, like, yeah, you're only like this because you're an ex-Christian. If you weren't a Christian, you wouldn't think this. And it's like, yeah, you're probably right. But kind of seeing the world as I did, that God had ordered my steps and he had a plan for everything. Losing that was quite a harrowing experience for me. And so I was clinging onto other vines. I needed a mission. And I guess it was kind of after university, so I was 21 to 25 is sort of like the social justice, arts and crafts and workshops and, not quite hedonism, but like leading into that. And kind of 25 to now, so I'm 30 now. It's like that 5-year period marks the kind of start of the new journey with philosophy. So it's I mentioned before, nihilism, determinism, egoism, relativism, and those things. I don't know. I guess that they are names and like they're tabs and hyperlinks on Wikipedia. But it was like, being on YouTube and the internet, trying to like find what I believe to be true, or to almost like reaffirm what I knew to be true. So I knew in myself that there was no kind of objective way to be. I guess in terms of that me going through the identity thing, I'd already kind of come across race and gender as things that didn't need to define me, the way that I behaved, the way that I felt about myself. And so beyond that, it was like, okay, wow, like who else thinks this? Who else has said this or thought this? And then I started to come across different philosophers who had said bits and pieces along the lines of where I'm at now.
Do you feel like it's a moral guide for you?
No, I'm amoral, I would say. And it's almost like, rather than thinking of any decision or judgment as being moral, I see it as being relative to one's individual interests. So they may or may not align with the broader community, be that like my family at home, or society at large, or the globe, the world. Each person does what they do or want to do based on their own given interests, their own self-interests. And so the idea of a moral guide, I mean, even as I said before, that like I don't self-flagellate. I kind of think of morals as a way to do that. They're a word. Like it's a word that exists in the real world, but I don't think of them as real. There's a book that a friend gave me that's actually here on my, I call it a coffee table, but I don't drink any coffee on it. So this, my TV, breakfast, alcohol table. Where is it now? I can't find it, shame. So like on ethics, I think it's called. And it looks at the difference between ethics and morality. And there's like a really, really interesting kind of back and forth between the two. I can see it now. It's just out of reach. Yeah, I don't think of it as a moral guide, no.
I'll link to that in the show notes. I know that book.
Yes. Yeah.
Good one. What was I going to say to you? Oh, yeah. In terms of morals, I think that's really interesting because it's also the idea that like nothing is inherently good or bad, because we also never know the outcome of stuff, right? So we can say that something is inherently bad, but a lot of the bad stuff that happens, some really good stuff can come with it, and vice versa. Yeah. That doesn't mean it's not difficult or painful or challenging. But I think it's a really amoral, really interesting.
Yeah, it's taken me a while to own that, and I definitely cleared smoking areas with that word, and I've also kind of alienated myself at after parties, as you can imagine. But maybe being in isolation and without the kind of threat or fear of being a loner in the party has allowed me to own it more.
So you're like all ready for lockdown as well?
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I haven't been to an after party in a while, sadly, but I feel like they're a hot place for philosophy chats, or for like very basic level philosophy chats.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would also say that, I mean, I mentioned, hedonism before, that they kind of coincided. And so it would have been a lot of those sort of like, surface level, I'll say surface level, not to take away from the value and importance of those conversations, but there's only so much you can get across or out of someone in the kind of like fast-paced, loud, smoking area or after party situation. But I go through my phone notes sometimes, either looking for a poem or whatever else. Like I've got a note in there which is like watch and one which is read. And so I look for a film I want to see. I just type in watch, and then as I do that, I go through my notes. It's like, okay, wow. So at 3:46 a.m. on the 17th of March, 2019, someone told me to check out Nietzsche. So yeah, it all kind of happened around the same kind of time, and I would take notes and go off, and then in my kind of sober, balanced mind would check stuff out again.
I think there's a lot of people looking forward to making those late night notes soon. Things open up, and also another of your priorities, right? So another of your priorities is partying.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I was thinking about them, I was going to just write sex, drugs, rock and roll, and I was like, no, someone else has either definitely done that or they haven't done that for a reason. So I won't do that. Let me kind of think of it harder. And yeah, I think maybe partying encapsulates those things. And so is an accurate and worthy choice in terms of my priorities. It's about friendship. It's about the music. It's about growth and information. I suppose, again, with my church background, there was a vacancy for communion in that way, like music shared with people. And I suppose maybe it's my love of the form, that the form being music production, and being around people who are also obsessed with like, okay, how did you make that song, or have you heard that song, how did you get hold of that record or whatever else. Those conversations and the way in which, I suppose even now, or today, the walk that I went on, someone was sending me tracks to listen to. And there were some really amazing moments in the songs that I heard. And I was like, how have I not heard this before? I want to discover more. So it's about curiosity. It's about discovery. And I guess anyone who's, leaving their house at 10 o'clock is definitely someone who's curious in search of discovery.
I miss leaving the house at 10 o'clock. I mean, I've got a toddler and another baby on the way, so it's been a while.
Oh,
and I miss that.
Well, the days will come again, I'm sure.
They will.
Indeed.
What's the best party you've ever been to?
Man, I mean,
like picking a child.
So many. But do you know what? I guess it's the way in which people often say, what is the greatest poem, or who's the greatest poet, or film, music. It's a combination of things, isn't it? Because there's the technical brilliance of it, but then there's also the kind of cultural impact of it. How much did people talk about? How much do people talk about it? And with that in mind, I'm going to say that the best party that I've ever been to is one that people still talk about. It was my friend Hannah TW's house party. She runs a project, a now record label called Ladies Music Pub, with Tyson, who's just released a single actually as well, worth checking out if you're listening. Yes, please. And this was like 2015 or 2016, literally just at the point in time that we're talking about, when I just sort of like was at my wit's end of like what to do with my emotional and spiritual life, and kind of got immersed in this kind of like dark world of late night raves. And one of the kind of kickstarts for that was Hannah TW's house party in Brixton. I can't remember who was DJing. I think everyone. I say everyone. Who that is to the people listening. I guess I should try and fill in the blanks. But even now, my mind's just gone blank. But at the time, it felt like everyone that I was like in awe of and obsessed with and impressed by, and kind of wanted to be like, from a musical DJ standpoint, was playing. And Hannah's House Party 2015 and 2016, best party ever.
Does that keep you going during lockdown? Just like thinking about that. Yeah. A lot of people just being like, when it gets really grim, I just think about a really good party that I've been to and trust that will happen again at some point.
Well, yeah, fingers tightly crossed. I mean, it's not gonna be this way forever. I'm sure. But I don't know. I guess I get my sneaky little morsels of fun in, and that's what's kept me going more than anything else. I am quite a social creature, I suppose. And even not long ago, actually, I was thinking on one of my down days. It was like, damn, why do I feel so down? And I was looking out the window. It's like your whole life for the last 5 years has been like seeing people and parties and restaurants and events, performing. Mm. And that's how you define yourself. That's who you were for a long time. And so you feeling out of sorts is probably something to do with that. And
yeah, for sure.
Once I kind of landed on that, I was like, okay, boom, that makes sense. And I guess I don't know, maybe it's probably relevant for some people listening. But like I tend to find that works for me quite a lot, trying to locate the source of the angst, or the source of whatever's making me feel out of sorts, and I guess it's different and difficult for different people. So I'm thankful that I have kind of like the equipment, if that's the right words, to do that. And so that's kind of what's worked for me, especially over the lockdown period, like feeling down or feeling like something's not quite right. Very quickly be able to be like, okay, no, it is that you've got this thing to do and you haven't done it yet. And you're concerned that they're going to think this and that about you. So what are you going to do? Get it done. Yeah, get it done. it kind of operates that kind of very mechanical way for me.
I think it is a matter of also putting that effort in to tapping in.
Yeah.
It's not always easy, or it's never easy, even, let's say, to tap in and like actually ask what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a bit, well, that's what people talk about, isn't it? The idea of putting stuff off or using things to get away from the thing that is bothering you. Yeah. And so, yeah, I think maybe I talked at the start about like being in a haze for a few days and then kind of coming back and hitting those to-do lists. It's very that, being like, feeling something's not right, going off on some adventure for a little while. And then once I've like hit my limit with that or, got out what I need to get out, then being like, okay, boom, you know what's up now. You've got to go and do that. And like you say, it does take effort and it isn't always enjoyable, having to call, I don't know, your accountant or your landlord or, your partner or your friend or your whatever else, it isn't often easy. But kind of do what you've got to do to get that done.
Drop back in. I got a question about partying.
Yes.
Do you ever see it as an escape? Or do you see it sounds to me like the way you talk about it, it makes you feel really present. In your life. And for so many people, partying has a negative connotation. Say it's something that they turn to when they don't really want to face life and they go down that path. Yeah.
Well, you know what? I think hearing you say that helps me to make sense a bit more of who I am to some of my friends, I think. And maybe even to like my audience, perhaps. Like I definitely think that, as part of my amoral worldview, a thing like that, nothing can be bad in and of itself. Relative to the individual, it could become bad. But then thinking of myself as the individual, it's about what do I want? I always believe that I do what I want to do. When it's a voluntary act, at least. And so it's like, okay, I feel like this is what I want to do. I want to go and do this. This being, staying at home and reading, drinking some water or having a cup of tea and going to sleep, versus I'm going to go out on a 3-4 day bender. And that's what I'm going to do. To me, that there's nothing wrong with either of those decisions. And yeah, I guess you asked the question about an escape. I don't know if I want to think of it in the sense of that binary of like escaping versus being present, because you're always present. You're always there, to kind of speak in a solipsistic way. And I guess I understand what's meant by that. But I wouldn't think of myself as escaping. It's almost like, this is what, remember at the start I talked about these kind of truisms that get bandied about. The best way to get, I forgot it. It's like the best way to get over something is through it, or something like that. Yeah. I think it was actually in Homeland. I've been watching that. But yeah, it's like I'm still moving in, the velocity is still there. And it may well be that for me to get to the place I'm going to get to, seeing some friends and having a few drinks is necessary, having a dance is necessary. It may be that having some soup and going to sleep is necessary. But then me being a determinist, I can never think, I should have done this or I should have done that. It's always just like, I did what I did and now I'm going to do what I'm going to do. So there is no negativity in it for me. And it's really hard to think of things that happen as being positive and or negative. They're just things that happen. Even, the other day I was cleaning my knife and I slashed my finger wide open, and I suppose that should have come with a trigger warning for anyone who's squeamish. But I was like writhing in pain for a few moments. And then it's like, okay, in the same sort of fashion, all right, what am I going to do about this? I'm going to clean the cut, I'm going to get some plasters, and it kind of made practical decisions to get over this thing. I can still feel the pain in my finger now. But it's like, it's a thing that happened, and what am I going to do about that? Am I going to kind of like sit around and cry about that all day? Well, maybe. And if I do, that's what I do. But I may also not. I may also, like I say, get a plaster, clean it up, and carry on my life. So yeah, it isn't that part, it's a good or bad thing.
It is that, just moving through stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
My work centres on helping people better navigate this challenging modern world, so I'm very excited that this episode of Priorities is sponsored by Anatomy, a London-based modern apothecary that provides natural solutions to support the stresses of daily life. Anatomy's range of vitamins, health supplements, and therapeutic essential oils have been developed with the help of sports scientists, nutritionists, and aromatologists, and they combine the best of nature and science to create products that support your essential health and well-being. I've been using their defense and immune support vitamins all winter, and I love their sleep and recovery oils. I put a little of their blue chamomile insomnia blend on my wrists and the soles of my feet before I get into bed, and always find it helps settle my body and mind. Anatomy are kindly offering any Priorities listener 20% off their first order with the code LILY20. Check them out on www.anatomy.co. So that your third priority is poetry.
Yeah.
Of course. When did you get into poetry, James?
All right. I got into poetry when I was, well, I'm going to say 12, but that's not accurate. For as long as I could remember, I was writing and reading. One of my kind of favorite books was Alan Alberg's Now We Are Six. And that is like a compilation is the wrong word. An anthology of poems, either by 6-year-olds or about being six, by people of various ages. And I can't quite remember that detail, but the fact that I remember that means that I was a lot younger than 12 when I was getting into it. Big fan of the Roald Dahl books as a youngster, obviously. Church background, we read the King James version of the Bible. And I did like my Shakespeare thing when I was in school. So I'd always loved kind of reading and writing and reciting out loud. But 12 is an important age because that's how old I was when I gave my first like public recitation of a poem that I'd written. And it was for the church's New Year service. But 12. I was definitely 12. That's correct. It was for 2002 into 2003's New Year service.
And then did it always stay as something huge in your life, or did it oscillate? What was the relationship like, say, when you stepped away from the church?
I think so. That's, and that was an important point because I definitely stopped writing for a bit then. I guess even less than not writing is about not having an audience or anywhere to perform. And I could almost map my journey as an individual in terms of what I was into spiritually or philosophically by my journey in poetry. Because, at that point before becoming an atheist, they were all very religious poems, almost like psalms, or kind of like evangelical kind of mini pamphlets, to try and convert people, with kind of rhythm and rhyme and all the rest of it, kind of integral to the writing. But they're definitely religious works. And then after that, I had a gap, and it was like, okay, now what do I write about? And then that's when the identity shift happened, because it was like I joined the Afro-Caribbean Society at my university and kind of started reading in the post-colonial movement on my degree. So I did an English degree. I discovered a bunch of writers on that. And that kind of like, that felt like a kickstart again. Like, this is important. I can write about this. This feels like me. This feels like home. And that was my kind of style for a little while. And then I suppose beyond that, you kind of discover other writers, some of the feminists. Women's movement was another module. And then all the writers that I discovered from that, and the conversation that I had with people on my course, and then even outside of university, the gigs that I was doing then, just started discovering all these kind of writers, the beat movement and whatever else. And I kind of felt like re-energized. And I hadn't had a new reason to write.
How do you feel when you're writing and performing?
It depends. I think so. If I'm writing for commission, it's a slightly different process because I've kind of got an end in mind, either because of the time that the poem has to be read aloud, or because there are certain words or references that need to be in there to satisfy the person who's commissioned the piece. But then separate from that, if I'm just feeling something, or I'm in a mood, or in some kind of altered state, then it's a really freeing thing and quite a funny thing. It's almost like telling a joke to myself. Or almost more like creating a joke, an in-joke with myself, should I say. And I'm trying to I don't say I'm trying to make myself laugh. I'm often kind of like humoured or trying to get humour across. There's a friend of mine who talks a lot about the cosmic joke. That nothing is, nothing's to be taken too seriously or whatever. And another friend says funny is money. So between those two high and low statements, I definitely tend to find that like writing is like something that I enjoy, something that makes me laugh, makes me smile. And when I'm performing, it's the same thing. I want to convey that sense of joy, reverence, and the silliness of it all, like let's have some fun. I mean, I guess I call it party poetry, because I guess even in the party context, the person who kind of tends to hold court is the one who's kind of got the best anecdotes or tells the funniest jokes, or who's just the most chill, and I guess that's part of the writing process. You like being chill, like not being too uptight, letting it flow, saying what feels good to say, and not censoring yourself too much. So I think that the idea, like I said, of like writing a poem and wanting to make myself laugh, it's kind of the same thing. That I want to make the audience laugh, I want to make the reader laugh, and not necessarily even like a ha very funny kind of way necessarily, but also like the thing that happens sometimes when a stand-up tells like a really crude joke or something that's kind of like on the edge of what's acceptable to say, and there's like an awkward laughter. I like that as well in writing. So I try and get that across. I try and make myself feel that as well. And that's kind of when I know it's working.
Like when something's a little bit off.
Yeah, like I'm thinking about things now that I won't say on this podcast, but there are so many instances I could think of where there's like an in-joke in the poem that I get and that a friend of mine might get, and even like kind of broader cultural in-jokes that my parents might read the poem and not get it, but that people who are into what I'm into will see it and know it as well. I guess humor is a way that people kind of belong, like I say, an in-joke or a shared sense of humor. Yeah. I like to talk to my people that see my sense of humor as well. And I guess the important thing to say is that really does go across like lines of, whatever demographic you want to talk about. My people are everywhere and they look all kinds of ways, but they just get me, and I get them, and I want to talk to them and be in the same room as them. And my poetry is a way to do that.
Are there any in-jokes in Prince Charles's 70th birthday party?
Now, that would be telling. Oh my goodness. That would be telling.
Don't know whether to ask you about all the Meghan stuff. That's too long of a topic, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean that's close to home. I mean, maybe even close to my home and other people's relative to my work, and the commissions that I've done. But I don't know. I think that there are kind of like big cultural moments where people kind of pin their own experiences onto it. So I guess it maybe happens more now, actually, because everyone's got their own kind of platform. That something big happens that goes right to the top of the. This is such a London thing to say, but right to the top of the Shard, and then it shines out all across London. Everyone can see it, and then everyone can have an opinion on it. But I suppose, like, maybe now more than ever, I enjoy not having an opinion on some things, or having an opinion and not feeling obliged to share it. I suppose it's maybe a thing of minding one's own business, but also I guess in terms of what I said before, the identity stuff and the social justice stuff, like that was a thing for me, because I was really trying to change the world at one point. And I mean that in the most earnest sense of the phrase. I really wanted to save everyone. And as delusional as it sounds now, maybe it's not that out of character for people who are just out of university and in their early 20s, prime of life, and just discovering things for the first time. These really radical ideas that just feel new, and you want to share them with everyone. And I think maybe I kind of ran myself into the ground a bit trying to do that, and almost like came to the decision, conclusion. Maybe this was like just before I started getting into the philosophy stuff, but that like my energy is best served looking after those that I care about, who are closest to me immediately, and myself, of course, as a way to conserve energy, not such that almost to say that one is more useful that way, in not trying to attach myself to every struggle, to every issue, for the sake of maybe it's coming from the place of wanting to help, But I think even in some instances, it wasn't necessarily about wanting to actually help. It was about wanting to be seen to be helping, and to be seen to be on the quote unquote right side of history. I think at a point at which I started to care less about what people thought about me in that regard, I kind of felt freer and more able to use my energy to do the things that were more expedient in terms of my own longer term goals. I mean, that's a long answer to a short question, but I think that may have, yeah.
Just that thing of, got to look in before we look out.
Yes.
Interesting and honest what you said as well about feeling as if perhaps sometimes you were doing things to be seen to be doing them, rather than because that was your calling or what really connected with you. Even if it didn't connect with you, it's not as if you're doing it from a place of being disingenuous, but that there's that self-interest at play, which we all have.
Yes. But I guess maybe I didn't understand that then. Yeah. I think I thought that I was better than people. I thought that they were selfish and I wasn't. And why aren't you out marching with me? Why are you not as down for the struggle as I am? And then at a certain point, I realized that everyone is carrying something, and everyone has something, and so rather than kind of condemning people, so I guess there is the other that preaches the choir, and a lot of my kind of anger wasn't even directed at people on the opposite side of the political spectrum. It was directed at people on my side. A lot of anger and frustration and vitriol at people who weren't pushing as hard as me, And looking back now, it's like, wow, I might have to send some apology text to people, because I really cared, I really did think I was doing the right thing. And almost like the road to hell being paved with good intentions is really expressed in that point in time for me. When I was like, doing events and at squats and whatever else, like having these conversations and whatever else all the time, and feeling like people who weren't putting in that much time and effort were not as committed to the quote unquote struggle. Only to see that everyone has their own struggle that they are completely committed to. So I guess now I kind of have a better sense of what my individual struggles are, and I won't say it comes with age. I'll say it comes with experience, and that experience and age don't have to necessarily go hand in hand. They can go at different times. So me, with the experiences I've had to this point, feel like I'm doing as good a job as I can of managing my wants and needs with the wants and needs of the people around me, such that we can live in peace. And I guess that there is the word compromise that people use. But I guess it's like coexist and cooperate. I like cooperate. We're all operating in our own ways, that we're just operating in a coordinated fashion. And that's what I long for. I long for I long to live in this kind of situation longer term, and I want that for my friends and loved ones, and in a kind of idealistic way for everyone around the world. But the reality of things would suggest that that's not going to be the case at any point. But it's still something that I wish, in some ways, and try to live up to that for myself. Peace and love, basically.
It's a good thing to be striving for.
Yeah.
Has there been a moment in your life, James, where your priorities have changed, sort of almost in an instant?
Well, yeah, I guess I've spoken about religion, philosophy, politics quite a bit, but those moments were big. I think maybe certain medical diagnoses at different points, or accidents that I'd had, made that happen too. Things that kind of felt important weren't anymore. Kind of in the face of life or death decisions. Or not necessarily even life or death. I mean, when I came off my bike not long ago, it felt like that. I saw my life flash from my eyes. But then in other instances, it's just like, okay, well, if that's not an option because of health or whatever, then, okay, what really does matter? And I do try to maintain that, it's just actually hit me. Less my own health, but more, or my own life or death situations. But when friends and loved ones die, that really does that. Yeah. And over the years, I've had a lot of people that I've known and loved die. And even actually come to think of it with the poetry stuff and my angle there, it really is impacted quite heavily by those deaths. Being like, okay, wow, so-and-so's gone. What is the point of it now? It's like, okay, no, you've got to find your own new meaning. And almost to laugh in the face of death, perhaps, as well. It's like another thing about the cosmic joke, to not fear it and to accept it as a reality and part of life. So yeah, when someone that I cared about has died, then it's like, okay, hang on, maybe I need to, relax a little bit more, and maybe I need to take some pressure off myself, and maybe I need to kind of like go for a walk and just like look at the trees for a little bit.
What I really like about your approach, James, I feel like whatever you're doing, you're leaning into things.
Yeah, maybe heavily my friends say, but yeah.
And it's a really, really brilliant way to do things, because we're circling back now, but life is hard.
Yeah.
Beginning. And I think many people try and move away from life or move away from things because they're so difficult.
Yeah.
And it seems to me like the way that you live and the way that you organize your life and your approach to things, you're always leaning into those spaces and seeing what's there and seeing what you can take from it and learn from it and how you can move forward.
Yeah, I'm a massive, I say I'm a massive, have you seen, there's a meme which is like, oh, you're a rock fan? Name 5 bands. Like, I was going to say I'm a massive Anthony Bourdain fan. And it's like, I've only become a massive fan of his in this last lockdown. So I'm not that big a fan. But a big enough of a fan to know that there was an interview of him and Iggy Pop on Parts Unknown, where they kind of like, they're chit-chat, and it's like, yeah, you know, I couldn't say that I have anything to offer anyone in terms of advice except to be curious and to be open to experience and experiences. So yes, I guess in terms of what you said, like about me, then I guess it's kind of the same sort of thing of being curious. I mean, I almost want to say fearless, but that isn't right. It isn't about being fearless, but it's just about being curious and open to experiences. I guess just yeah, in that kind of like deterministic, almost like stoic acceptance of, you know, come what may. Yeah. But then, I mean, I'm on the internet a lot. Another kind of thing I see is, you know, you weren't insert trauma here, and it shows. So I often think about my life, and it's like I could say to someone, you weren't raised in a culty Christian domination, and it shows. I think maybe it's because I made my way out of that church group, the kind of the strength of character and mind that it took to get to where I'm at now. Just in terms of like that church thing, asking questions, being like, well, why do we observe a Sabbath? Why do we have a kosher diet? Why do we believe that Jesus is coming back on this exact date or whatever? You know, asking those questions and kind of feeling the backlash of my like loved ones, my peers, and the people I looked up to. You know, having been alienated by them, you're almost prepared for a life of, let's not say hardship, but like a life of like, okay, like, fuck it, throw it to the wind. Let's see what happens. You know, I'm going to ask the pastor why he said that in the sermon today, and I'm going to take whatever he says back and just swallow it. You know, it's that same kind of attitude, I think.
I think it's a good attitude to have.
Thank you.
Let's leave it there.
Boom.
So you're working on new music, right?
Yes, I am. I am indeed. I'm writing poems and trying to get them into some sort of like book shape, or if not a book, then like, I guess I do a lot of performance stuff, and it's almost the question of whether it can exist like right on the junction of the two. So writing poems, trying to make them into something that can be sold to a publisher, and also musically working on something that can be sold to a record label. Yeah, I mean, they're poems that I say to my friends all the time, and songs that I play to my friends all the time. So it works. They work in that context, but I'm just developing them, the words and the music, to see if they have any kind of broader appeal beyond my after party crew.
I'm sure they do. All right, James, it was so nice to chat to you. Thank you so much.
A pleasure.
Take care. If you enjoyed this episode of Priorities, I'd really appreciate it if you could make it your priority today to hit subscribe and also rate and review, as this helps other people find it. Need a little incentive? Every month, I offer one free 6-month membership to my online studio, Mindful Moment. All you have to do is hit subscribe, rate, review the podcast, and then email a screenshot of your review to podcast@lilysilverton.com for a chance to win. Thank you so much for listening. Take care.